Good morning, scholars. Today we're going to continue our way through Far's Homeric Greek, actually looking at a topic that Far does not really treat in detail, but since this hopes to be a complete course, I will treat it through Smythe, and that's the phenomenon of what are called conditional relative clauses. And so, beginning at Smythe, section 2560 and following. So, conditional relative clauses are relative clauses that may be resolved into if clauses. That means hos or hostis corresponds to atis, if someone, and hos or hostis on to aontis. So the antecedent of a conditional relative clause is indefinite, and such relative clauses, like temporal clauses, correspond to the form of protases of ordinary conditional sentences. So this is what I call the great correspondence. And so conditional relative sentences show in general the same substitutions permitted in the corresponding conditional sentences. Hos on is always generic, talking about a type, and aon may be particular in prose. But the key thing is to realize that you're going to see the same structures in these conditional relative clauses that you saw in the protases of conditional clauses. So you're going to have these same divisions of simple, unreal, general, past and present, and then in the future you're going to have both the more vivid and the less vivid. The emotional won't really come into play. So, to make this a little clearer, this is the Great Correspondence, section 2561. The correspondence and construction between the common forms of conditional, temporal, and conditional relative sentences is shown by the following table. So, let's consider these. The simple present. If he has something, he gives it. We can say when he has something, he gives it. And we can also say conditional relative, whatever he has, he gives. Likewise, talking about simple past, if he had something, he gave it. Aiken, edidu, or edoke. If he had something, he gave it. But we can also say when he had something, he gave it, i.e. temporal, or we can say whatever he had, he gave, a conditional relative, where the hote or te is equivalent to if he had something, aon, if he had something, he gave it. And likewise, with the future, more vivid, aon te, if he had something, if he has something, he shall give it. We can say whatever he has, he shall give. Or less vividly, we can say whatever he would have, whatever he should have, he would give. Should, would conditions. Okay, so this is a parallelism that exists across conditional, temporal, and conditional relative clauses, and allows you to see all of those various constructions through the same lens of the use of the various moods of the verb, with or without on. Okay, so let's go through these one at a time. So the first form is the present and past conditional relative clauses. So these are the simple present and past conditional relative clauses. And these clauses have the present or the past indicative. The main clause has the indicative or any other form of the simple sentence. So, in the first example, those of the Greeks who happened not to be in the ranks ran into the ranks. So this is from Xenophon's Anabasis. Ton Helenon, hoi me etukon entais taxesen ontes, estas taxes et deon. Deo is to run, eteon, they were running into the ranks. Ton helenon, hoi me etukon entais taxesen ontes. Now here we have our main verb in the relative clause being etukon, and it's important to realize, Smythe 2096, that this is one of three very important circumstantial or verbs that generate a circumstantial, a supplementary participle. So, tunkano, to happen, to am just now, lanthano, to escape notice, or am secretly, anthano, ptano, anticipate, and beforehand. These are three verbs where with these verbs the participle contains the main idea and is often represented in translation by the finite verb with an adverbial phrase. Thus, in this example, par on etunkane, he happened to be there, or he was there by chance. So, in this example, etukon ontes is just, it boils down to happening to be someplace. Etukon ontes. Ton helenon, hoi me, etukon entais taxes ontes, estas taxes etuon. So here we see that the hoi is equal to atenes. If any were not in the ranks, they ran into the ranks. And so that is the nature of these conditional relative clauses, that the relative can be resolved into the hypothetical A accompanied by the indefinite tenes, or tis, tit. So, and an added note is that if a relative clause expresses a present intention or necessity, the future indicative may be used. So, in this example from Thucydides, each thought that progress was surely impeded in any undertaking in which he was not going to take part. So we see our future indicative in the last word of the example, par estai, which is the future of par emi, to be present. In tutoi te ke kolustai edoke hekastoi ta pragmata hoi me tis autos par estai. And this example is a little complex, as befits Thucydides, but I did add this note that this is the perfect, which stands duty for the future perfect, from Smythe 1950. The perfect may be used vividly for the future perfect to anticipate an action not yet done. So, in tutoi te kekolusthai, in this, it seemed, doke, that it would be, there would be prevention would occur. It seemed, edoke, to each one, that in this, the matter, the business would be hindered. That is, in whatever he himself, tis autos, was not on hand for. So in tutoi te kolustai, edoke, hekastoi ta pragmata, hoi me tis autos par estai. Now we've seen this a couple of times, this use of dokeo, edoike, plus the infinitive. It's a very common, very, very common impersonal expression in Greek that is completed by the infinitive. And you should look it up in Smythe if you're not familiar with it. Now, to return to our main topic, the second form of these relative conditionals, conditional relatives, is the present and past unreal conditional relative clauses. And these have the secondary tense of the indicative in the conditional clauses, but the main clause has a secondary tense with on. So this is an example from Plato's Charminides. For if it were so, neither should we ourselves be undertaking to do what we do not understand. For neither should we ourselves be undertaking to do what we do not understand. Okay, utegar an autoi, epekerumen pratein, ha me epistameta. Now this is a good example where Greek is just less cumbersome than English. Utega an autoi, neither would we ourselves epikerumen, would we try to do what we did not understand. Ha me epistameta, and here the ha equals etena. If certain things we did not understand, neither would we try to be doing them. So utega an autoi epikerumen pratein ha me epistameta. So we see that in the green you have your main clause of an with a secondary tense here in imperfect, epikerumen, and then in your relative clause you simply have a secondary tense of the indicative again, epistameta, the aorist of epistami, to know. Now your third form gets you into the more vivid future of the conditional relative. So conditional relatives that vividly anticipate the realization of a future event take the subjunctive with an. The main clause has the future indicative or any other form referring to the future. So our first example, one from the Apology, this is where Socrates is saying to the court that exile won't do him any good, because if he gets exiled to another place, another community, the young men will continue to follow him and listen to him, and he'll get into the same trouble again. So he says, wherever I go, the young men will listen to my speaking. Hopoi an elto, legontus emu, acro asontai hoi neoi. So hopoi an eto. Here we see hopoi, we see one of our adverbial relatives. To wherever I might go, to wherever I may go. Elto being the aorist subjunctive of erkomai. Hopoi an elto, wherever I may go. Hoineoi, the young man, shall listen to me. Legontos emu. And we have the genitive here because whenever you're talking about actual physical listening, it's almost like the Greeks imagined that you were partaking in a very physical way. So you have this genitive of reception, of hearing someone speaking. So legontos emu, they shall listen to me as I speak. And then the next example from Lysias, a simpler example. Answer whatever I ask. Apokrinai hoti an se eroto. Answer whatever I ask you. And we see here an eroto, the an with the subjunctive being in the relative clause, hoti, whatever I may ask you, answer that. And we see that the imperative here, apokrinai, is equivalent to the future. So like it says here, the main clause has the future indicative or any other form referring to the future. The order of an imperative is a verbal action that refers to the future. If I say, take out the garbage, I'm referring to you doing that sometime in the future. So likewise in the final example from Thucydides, follow where anyone may lead you. Hepeste hope antis hegetai. And here again, we have one of our adverbial relatives. Epeste hope antis hegetai. Wherever someone might lead you, epeste, follow him there. So the fourth form of the conditional is our less vivid future, and that, of course, the conditional relative clauses that set forth less vividly the realization of a future event, these take the optative, and the main clause will have the optative with on. So our first example from Xenophon's Anabasis: I should hesitate to embark in the vessels that Cyrus might give us. Egogar oiknoi ein man an, eis ta ploia imbinein ha hemen doye. So, eis ta ploia ha hemen doye, into the boats which he might give, which he would give. Egoga oiknoien, I would hesitate imbine, to go aboard those. So here again, we have in the main clause the optative with on. I would hesitate to go into the boats. And what boats? If any boats he might provide, he would provide. And so we have ha hemin doi ein, which he might give to us. And then in the second example from Plato's Lysis: nor could he love what he does not desire. Ho de me agapoe ud an piloi. So here again, we have the optative with on in the main clause. Nor would he love. Ho de me nor would he love what he does not desire. Ho de me apagoge. And of course, agapao is a more emotional verb expressing the idea of love, whereas piloi is more like friendship. And the Lysis is a very interesting dialogue of Plato's, practically impossible to read outside of the original because of its heavy dependence on the varied Greek words for love, English only really having one, but Greek has several of them, and also it's heavily dependent on the uses of the middle, the active, and the passive, along with those verbs of love. So it's an interesting dialogue to read in the original, and almost impossible to translate or understand outside of that. Okay, so the fifth form of the condition are our present general conditional relatives, and as in the conditional clauses themselves, the present general conditional relative clauses have on with the subjunctive again, but the main clause has a present indicative or its equivalent. So this first example from Xenophon's Hellenica: whomever he sees zealous of danger in the face of the enemy, these people he honors. Okay, so timai, he honors, the main clause, that's just the present indicative of temao. But hus dan ora biloponos kai pilokendunos ekontas prostas polemus, whoever he might see, or whoever he might see behaving in a way that is loving of toil and loving of danger in the face of the enemy, that person he honors. And then likewise in the second example from Plato's Republic: they both get a wife from whatever family they please, and give their daughters in marriage to whomever soever they choose. Gamuse te hopoten an boulontai, ek dedoase te eis hus an etelose. So they marry from wherever they might wish, and they give their daughters into whatever families they might want to. So again, we have on with the subjunctive in the relative clauses. Hopoten an bulontai, from whatever family they might wish, they marry, and es hus an eteloi, into whichever family they may wish, they ekdedoase, they give their sons or daughters in marriage. So they both get a wife from whatever family they please, and they give their daughters in marriage to whomsoever they choose. Now the sixth form are our past general conditional relatives, and the past general conditional relatives have the optative in the relative clause, and the main clause will have the imperfect or its equivalent. So again, from Xenophon's Hellenica, whatever work he was engaged in, that he always performed. So this is a general statement about the past. Ie pros hoi ergoi tuto praten. So always towards whatever he was engaged, this he did. And then the last example from Thucydides, they used to destroy as many ships as they captured. That is to say, if ever they captured ships, they destroyed them. So a conditional relative. Pantas, hossus laboyen, ente talase, hos polemios, di epteiron. And more literally translated, all, however many they would take in the sea as enemies, di epteiron, they would destroy. So this imperfect, di epteiron, they would destroy them, is that imperfect of habitual action, habitual or customary action, and it's directed to whatever in general they would take. Pantas hosus laboyen di epteiron. Okay, and so although you can have the subjunctive with an in general conditional relative clauses, you can also have just the indicative. So, and we've already seen this, but here it is again. Smythe 2569. The present indicative, instead of the subjunctive with an, occurs in general conditional relative clauses. This occurs chiefly after hostis, which is itself sufficiently general in meaning. So that is to say that oftentimes you can just go with the indicative in the relative clause because hostis itself conveys the sense of generality. So our first example from Thucydides again, this is a general statement. Those who in feeling are least depressed at misfortunes, in action resist them most effectively. So they resist, i.e. misfortunes, most effectively. So if you don't let it get you down, you're going to make a bigger resistance to something bad that happens. So, hatenes pros ta sumporas nome, in mind, hekesta lupунtai, ergoi de malista antecuse. So here, Thucydides, typical, this balancing of these datives, nome, in mind, versus ergoi, in action. Hatenes pros ta sumporas, and sumporas, misfortunes, who are least pained in their minds, they are most, most effectively, they fight against them in action. And then our final example from Euripides' Electra. Whoever fixes his gaze on wealth or noble lineage and weds a wicked woman is a fool. So, hostes de Pluton e eugenean e sedon game poneran moros esten. He is a moron. He is a moron. Hostes de Pluton, wealth, or eugenean e sedon, looking upon, game poneran. And you see poneran is accusative and feminine, so it means a wicked woman. Whoever looking at wealth, her money, or her family, her bloodline, marries a wicked woman, i.e. disregarding her character, moros esten. that person is a fool. Okay, and finally, the indicative is generally used in parenthetical or appended relative clauses with hostis. So we have this example from Euripides' Orestes, where Orestes says, "Du leuomen theois, hote potesi hoi theoi." Du leuomen theois. We are slaves to the gods, whoever the gods might be. Hote estin, hote potesin, hoi theoi. And so this hote potesen, hoteoi, whatever those gods are, is seen as a parenthetical trailer to this main statement. We serve the gods. Okay, so this is a picture of me on my trip to Greece back in 2016. This is in front of what remains of the temple of Apollo at Delphi. So there we go, the wonderful pillars that still stand at Delphi on a beautiful, warm Greek late afternoon. Okay, so I look forward to seeing you again soon. Have a great day, and thank you for being interested. Goodbye.